Okay, yeah, it auto-updated for me. Did it auto-update for you? It should have.
Yes. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Yay.
All right. I don't know where my chat went to. They, like, all disappeared. That's totally okay.
Nice. No question at the moment. None at the moment. All right, so I'm going to let you start us
Oh,
off.
there's Hurt. Okay, so initial, like, so episode 2, we'll talk about the end of episode 2 with Aretusa and what's-her-face, not Yen, but Yen's, like, tutor person. Like, the whole, like, slug thing, the
Sarah?
eels. Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah.
Tasea.
Tasea.
Yeah. Once you started saying it, I remembered. Tasea, I thought that was interesting. That's something we forgot to hit on last time, was her pushing, like, the eels in, basically. And it, like, powering Aretusa. I didn't understand. Like, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, it was so weird.
And then they zoom out to like
the whole
front
thing.
Of, like, the thing, and like it's almost like it's getting like a power up.
Power, yeah. Like, it was like a power up.
You know, like the old like Dolby sound, like what?
Yeah.
I'm not even saying it right, but like the old sound, like when you're in the movie theater and it's like the surround sound. It's like, I can't do it, but that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, and then, like, I thought it was interesting because she was totally manipulating Yennefer in that moment because, she didn't knock on Yen's door, and Yen was, like, listening out. She knew that this whole thing was taking place, and she was expecting that knock on her door. So she knew Yen was gonna, like, come out and be like, what the heck is going on? Why am I not, like, over here? Why didn't I get invited? And so she knew that, you know, Yen was going to be watching this whole thing take place, watch her friends get turned into eels. And I just thought it was super interesting that
it makes me think, like, that just is how it is.
Yeah.
Because clearly they have to power it, right? Somehow. They have to power it. So it's fascinating to think, like, they didn't know she was looking for the strongest one, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, not all of them make it. Like, that's not in the contract. Like, by the way.
And it, like, clicked for Yen. It, like, clicked for Yen because she was like, oh, they're conduits of energy, of power. And I was like, okay. But I thought it was interesting that because Yen almost needed to be manipulated in that moment to kind of have everything click into place for her. Because she'd been so naive through the whole thing with that other guy and with what's-his-face, Stregobor. That whole situation she'd been manipulated through. But for Tasea to manipulate her in a way to make her see, you know, this is how life is. This is how it is for us. This is what has to happen. Kind of was like almost a breaking point for Yen, I think. Kind of broke her out of that naive situation. Which started setting up for episode 3 and 4.
I was just going to say that, which leads us into that next episode. But in a way, it kind of makes me think of, like, maybe, okay, so I think it was the beginning of her being naive, maybe, but I don't feel like it was the moment.
No,
because she has that moment in episode 3 where she's being told she's going to go to Nilfgaard, and then she can't, like, handle that.
She can't handle it,
yeah. So I think that is, like, the moment. Like, I feel like the eels was her being manipulated, and I don't think she quite knew she was being manipulated.
No, she didn't yet.
She realized she was naive to this, and then I think when she realized she was being manipulated was that moment when she realized, I'm not going to Nilfgaard, or I'm not going to Adrian or whatever. I'm going to Nilfgaard. This isn't okay. I want to find a way to have control over this. And so then she does what she does, and we'll get into episode 3 with that.
Yeah. So that moment that I think she realized that everybody was manipulating her was when she had told that secret of being part elf to the boy that she, in her eyes, she was in love with.
Right.
He wasn't in love with her. She was in love with him. And we've already talked about, you know, some of that chemistry there being an issue.
Right.
And she was so naive that she couldn't see that there wasn't that chemistry there. And so I think for her, like, realizing that Stregobor manipulated that boy to basically get information on Yen. Why is she so powerful? What's so special about her? Because if you remember, she's able to open portals on her own without training.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, like, that's, I mean, the very first episode, he's like, how did you, no, what was it,
it was when she opened that, so episode 3, she opens the, 2, she opens the portal on her own with the first try. But
right. And he's like, how did you do that the first try?
First try, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But even in, I think it was episode 1, she opened the portal from her pig farm on her own straight to Aretuza.
Right, exactly.
But her realizing that everybody was manipulating her and making her choices for her was when that secret was... What is her name? Fudge on a stick.
What does she look like?
The lady at Aretuza, the
Tisea. Tisea, okay.
Tisea. I was like, I just knew her name. When Tisea was like, well, you know, I didn't have, because Jen was like, well, you did this. You were manipulating me. You told everybody. And she's like, actually, no, Stregobor told him because you told that boy, and I have no power now. Like, it is what it is. You can't go.
I think that what that does to her is it helps her realize how careful she has to be now in this world of politics and manipulation. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, even if you're close to someone, you have to, you know, you can't really, how close can you be to someone without risking that?
Yeah.
And no, I don't get alerts in this screen. I get Meg's alerts.
Oh, yeah. I gave you the stuff to make it.
I know, and I didn't make it because I'm the worst.
So Rock says the argument Yen had with her dude friend was very foreshadowing for her character. It really was. And I think, too, that moment where they're all having, where she's having intercourse with her boyfriend, and he's uncomfortable in that moment with everybody watching. And he's like, can you do something about that? And she made them clap.
Yeah.
When basically she finished him off.
Yeah.
And he was like, that was a nice touch. And that was kind of the end of it. Like, it was very subtle, but it kind of just showed her power and his lack of power.
Yeah.
And, like, his manipulation of the situation.
Yeah.
Like, all of the elements of that. Her on top. Like, literally every second of that moment was...
her
an essence of a foreshadowing.
Yeah, I mean, she's all about power, so I mean, makes sense. On top, power move.
It is a power move. Yep.
Oh my gosh, I need water. I just realized that. Okay, so moving into episode 3. Is that how we open it? I feel like is that how it opens? I can't remember. No, it opens with Ciri.
It opens with Ciri learning that boy is an elf, right?
Yeah. No, we already knew he was an elf. It opens with her, because the episode ended with her walking towards.
Brooklyn Forest.
Yeah. So it ends with that, and then it opens with that. I'm pretty sure if I remember.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, it opens with her in the forest. That's right.
Yeah.
So episode 3 was where originally you get the first hint of there being a time shift.
Oh my gosh, that was...
And I missed it.
We missed it the first time because we messaged...
Yeah, I messaged...
we messaged, we're like, hey, did you notice? I was like, I did notice
that.
So guys, if you like we said, in episode 3, there's, in The Witcher general, there's a huge... time, like, you're literally watching 3 different timelines at once, and you don't really realize that probably until episode 3 for real. You really see it in episode 3 when not even Yen, when they go to the mage ball, and in the mage ball is the prince and princess.
I'm looking for his name. King Foltest. It's
Foltest and Ada.
Foltest and Ada, yeah.
Yeah. So Foltest and Ada are who Geralt is basically dealing with in that same episode, but it's grown up Foltest.
Like 60 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so like that was like, but that was such a subtle.
It was so subtle.
Subtle thing. And that's that's one of the reasons why I'm loving this show so much, is it's how much
So
you
many
have to pay
subtleties.
attention.
So,
Yeah.
like, in the castle, when Geralt is fighting the Striga, there's a moment where Triss, like, points out a painting, and, or Geralt sees this painting, and they're
Yeah.
basically talking about how, you know, life was for Foltest and Ada as children. And you get this, like, you see this little curly-haired boy and this adorable little curly-haired girl, and you think nothing of it. And then, like, 20 minutes later, you're in the ball, the mage ball, and
Yep.
there's a split second. It is like 3 seconds long where it pans the crowd and zooms in on this little girl and little boy, and they're like picking at each other, and the mom's like, Foltest, stop picking on your sister, basically. Stop picking on Ada. And I completely missed it the first time. Like, didn't put 2 and 2 together because it was so quick. You're just like, why are they panning in on this little girl and boy that don't matter?
Yeah.
And I got it the second time
and
around.
You're like, oh, I get, the timeline is so different now.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense. This is not the same time. This is taking you through Yen becoming Yen, and Geralt is 60 years ahead of that timeline, and then Ciri is 80 years ahead of that timeline. Like, that was a really eye-opening moment for sure. And I had that written down. So just like, let's just continue with Yen. Episode 4 is when she's saving the lady, right?
When she's trying to save the lady, yeah.
So there's another very subtle time jump. The episode 4 is so jam-packed, guys. It is like, we could probably do an
hour on just
4.
episode 4. Yeah,
we really could. It is so insane. Like, so it opens with. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and it's such a foreshadowing for the entire rest of the series.
Yeah,
every single little bitty thing. Like, you cannot overlook a single thing in episode 4. I rewatched it twice today because I was like missing so much. I was like, it's moving too fast.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Like, opening on Yen, because I'm just going along the Yen train here.
Yeah, we'll stick with Yen for a bit.
Yeah. One of the first things she says is, I can't believe I've been doing this for 3 decades. And you're like, wait, what? It's been we've jumped another 30 years in one episode, from one episode to another. And you're like, that's the only hint you get.
Yeah.
We have jumped another 30 years on Yen's timeline. Like, that's it. If you miss that line, you're like, what's going on?
Yeah, you don't get it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but she changed kingdoms as well.
Okay, so that's something I missed in the first one. I was really confused about what was going on in the first episode because of the whole Nilfgaard Adrian switch up. So, and it kind of is like, oh, how did I miss that after I watched it again? But she comes into the ball and takes Frangilla's guy, and he's
Spot.
Yeah, and replaces her for Adrian. So she takes that spot, and that's where she is still. She's still in Adrian, but she made that flip in that moment. She wasn't supposed to. She even what's her name?
Everything would have been completely different. To say it even said she was supposed to go to Nilfgaard. That entire moment was a setup for Frangilla. Like, you can see Frangilla completely broke in that moment because of everything that was going on. I don't have your audio high enough. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Here we go. But, like, you can see just the rage in her eyes.
She was mad.
She was pissed. And so something interesting, the costuming for Frangilla specifically, I thought was intriguing. Her gown was completely different than the rest of the girls' gowns in that ballroom scene. She had a white gown.
Did she?
She had
I didn't notice
a light gown. She was the only light gown of all the mages. Everybody else had a darker jewel tone or was black. And it was either white or baby blue. And after that moment, she doesn't wear that color now.
She's like in a dark gray, isn't she?
She's in Nilfgaard colors, but she's in darker colors. But she, in that moment, was in a very light gown. And I was like, that is a bit of costuming genius there, because you're showing she's so innocent. She's, happy with, even if you look at the round table where all the mages are meeting together to vote on where placement for Yennefer goes, everybody's in dark colors. All the mages are almost always in dark colors, and Frangilla's the only one in a white or light. It was either white or light blue gown. And so I think it was
light blue. It doesn't matter, but it's light.
It was very stark compared to the rest of the ball. The kings,
you
can't count the kings because you have to notice too. The king of Aiden had on a white frock.
Yeah. Oh no, he was light colored.
Yeah, he was light colored. Everybody else was dark colored.
Yeah.
So I thought that was another bit of interesting. Like they matched.
I love when they do that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
And then you have Yen walking in all black.
Yeah. I know you want. We can jump onto that. Hold on. She probably can't. I was gonna ask if Meg ever figured out what the monster, the assassin from the first or second episode, was called.
No, it's not in the bestiary. I checked through all of it. I checked through my Witcher book, and I couldn't find one that fit the actual like characteristics of that specific monster.
One?
The one that the assassin's monster, basically.
Oh, the little
it looks like a Kikimora. It's not a Kikimora.
No, it's not a Kikimora at all.
But it most similar looks to that, but it's not.
Because the Kikimora is the very first thing we see in the series. Big spider thing. And then throughout the game, we see smaller versions of that.
Mm-hmm. But this was completely different. And so I rewatched the episode with that today, and it has actual like knife blades.
Yeah, it has like knives.
So I couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah. I have no idea either. I mean,
I did look though. I did look. I have a big Witcher book. I'll have to show it sometime. But I literally have a huge Witcher book. And I'll send you the link, Otter. I'll send you the link. I think it was $20.
I want to see it. I want it.
I think it was $20. I'll send you the link. It was on Amazon.
Okay, cool.
But I looked through it. I couldn't find anything like it. I'm hoping they come out with another companion based on the Witcher show. I'm thinking they'll capitalize on it. I'm thinking they will.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what it was.
Now, staying on the costuming, because you had a lot to. We were talking a little bit about this earlier, and you had a nitpick with the costuming. So why don't we go there?
I do. I have a few nitpicks with costuming. Overall, I think it was great. So if some of you know, some of you may not. I am a historian, and I'm a historical research analyst. That was my job for years before I started doing Twitch stuff. Before I started doing video games. So my specialty was in European history, medieval focus. And so I was like, oh, this is great. The costuming is fabulous. It's on point. It's fantasy, but all of the fantasy is based in a medieval time period, and they've pulled from history. So my nitpick with the costuming was there's a couple. But the pan, when Yennefer's doing her first initial kind of like prelim enchantment meeting, there's a moment where they pan and you see all these mannequins basically, and they've all got dresses on. Yep. Most of the dresses are off the rack dresses from this time period. That pissed me off. So that was one thing. But then it got worse because they do a close-up, and it's a close-up of a sequin mini that you would wear to a nightclub, and I was like, what is this? You could have done a close-up of any of the dresses that any of the other girls wore, and nobody would notice. But you do not have those sequin dresses. You don't have a sewing machine capable of this technology in your world. So I was mad.
Like, this is not acceptable.
It was not. I was mad.
Shame on you.
Yeah, I was mad.
How does Meg feel about the Nilfgaardian shriveled armor?
I don't particularly mind the armor in the series. There's some of it that I think is a little out of period, but I can get over it more than I can get over a sequined mini dress. I could not get over the sequin mini dress. I missed it the first time. The second time I could not.
I'm having internet.
A little bit about my issue with some of the clothes, but I don't know if we. Yeah. I feel like that's where we left off. I
think we left off with the clothes.
with the clothes. I feel like that was
guys,
yeah.
What happened is last week we tried to do this and my internet pooped out, so we didn't get to finish it. So we're basically just gonna wrap up our 3 to 4 episode talk in hopefully about 30 minutes, so that I can mush them together and make a
podcast for it.
To mush it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a bit of an issue there, but we're gonna get back into it. So where's my phone? I had a list of questions.
Oh, and I messaged you that thing I saw when I was reading.
Oh yeah, let's start with that.
Okay. So you know how we were talking about how the cat eyes was such a thing. So at the very beginning in the books, if you guys don't read the books, you're missing out on a lot. So we'll just start there. Don't listen to the audiobook, because the audiobook guy kind of just sucks as a reader. It's like he like drones on, and I'm like a big audiobook person. I love audiobooks because I get to like speed through them on 2x speed. And it makes my life easier. So anyway, I started reading the books, and it starts off in the books with the whole Striga and what's his name? Foltest. So that's where the books start. Is with the Witcher meeting this guy, and he's not actually meeting Triss, he's meeting somebody else.
Yep.
And so they're talking about this whole thing to get rid of the Striga, who ends up being a princess, etc., etc. Well, there's this tiny one word, it's like 5-word sentence where Geralt drinks the potion, and it says his entire iris takes up his whole eye, and his eyes just basically turn black. And I was like, oh my god, I missed it. I missed that line entirely.
I totally missed it. I just read that.
The first little bit.
Like a month ago, and I totally missed it, because we were talking about how in the game he's got the cat eye, and in the book he's got the cat eye, and you're like, but the show, he doesn't have the cat eye. So we were like, what's going on, and is that a big deal or not? We just kind of settled on it's really not a big deal.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal, but I thought it was cool that they definitely added that like little bit in there with the potions, because they definitely don't with the games.
Yes,
nothing happens with the games.
No idea. Did I drink this?
I don't know.
The potion, there's a little thing up on my screen.
Yeah, there's a little ticker, but you're doing so many things at once that you're like, wait, is that a potion? Is that an oil on my blade, or what?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
So I thought that was really interesting. But the clothes. Oh, the mini sequin dress. That was my like big qualm. So there's this like scene where Yennefer is having her like introductory session with the enchantment guy. Yes. And they spin around the room, and you see all these dresses in the background, and they're all like off the rack dresses from this time period, like from now. All the other dresses in the entire thing are like from Renaissance time. And then you see this red and gold sequin mini dress, and I was like, what is that? And why is that here? I was like unreasonably angry over that stupid dress.
I love it so much.
I was so angry.
She messaged me, you guys, and was like,
oh my god. Yeah.
It was really funny.
But I did think that the costuming for the Novigrad chick, what is her name? I thought that was well done.
Yes.
What is her name?
The
mage.
The Frangilla?
Frangilla, yes, thank you.
With
the bluish dress,
like the white bluish white dress.
The super light dress.
Yeah.
I thought that was well done, because it was very much like a foreshadowing moment that you didn't know was foreshadowing.
Yes. And I love it. So I have a question.
Okay.
I think this was kind of answered for me, but I wanted to confirm it. So in the beginning of episode 3, I think, is 3 with the Striga?
Yeah, 3's with the Striga.
Okay. So in the beginning, they have the Witcher who comes, and they think that he runs off or whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes into like a meat locker. Now my question is this Striga like leaving the castle to kill people? Why was he in a meat locker to like hunt her? Because Geralt does it in the castle. So I was
I think
confused
that
on
was
how
like a preservation station because if you look, he's digging in salt. Like all those bodies are laying in just vats of salt.
yeah.
So it's like a preservation method
No,
for
no, no,
for
no,
bodies.
not
But
that. I mean, when that Witcher, not Geralt, the other one, the
did I miss
unnamed one,
seeing
is
that?
hunting her. He goes into like a locker with a bunch of meat hanging in it, and
I
then
don't remember that.
he gets attacked. And I don't know if it's the Striga. I thought it was the Striga, but I don't know who.
Well,
I'm
she was
pretty sure it was the
she was
Striga.
leaving the castle. That's how a lot of them were
So she was
dying
leaving.
because like um so if you remember in the books, they talk about how like hi Riggs in the books they talk about how during I think it was like the full moon or something, she's the most active and that's basically when she was leaving. She said they were saying that anybody that goes into the castle for her was pretty much fair game.
Okay.
But she would once a month leave the castle, the old castle, not the new castle, because there's two. They basically left the old castle in ruin because of that whole thing. And she once a month was leaving that old castle to go feed. And so in the book, he even talks about how he wanted to wait until after the full moon. It was like 4 days or something. He was because the king
Yeah.
was like, "Wait, why don't you want to go now?" And he's like, "Cause she's gonna be like
Extra
hungry
strong.
and
Yeah.
like pissed
Hungry.
off and she's gonna want me. She's not gonna be as hungry then." So he was
He's
like,
like,
she's
you're
gonna
gonna let
be
her eat
satiated,
people.
right?
Yeah. Right.
Basically, so it was like a sacrifice that
Okay.
he was kind of willing to make that I thought was interesting and uh,
Yes. Okay, I wanted to make sure. That's kind of what I was thinking, but I was like, I want to just check to make sure I understood because, like we were saying, there's so many little things, um, that I was like,
obsessed with The
maybe I missed
Witcher
something. Or,
because
I
the
don't know.
TV
I just
show.
want to make sure.
Yes,
So that is what she does leave the castle. I was like,
yeah,
because I couldn't remember if she left or not, or if
yeah,
people
yeah.
were just idiots. Like like how in movies they're like, let's leave. Well, let's see who can last the longest. People, that kind of crap. We're still at the
It's like
haunted
those
house.
memes you see where it's like um that you have that one stupid person who's like, I'm gonna go investigate that noise, and you know there's like a murderer outside, and it's like,
Exactly.
I'm dumb and I'm curious. I'm not so dumb and curious that I'm gonna leave the safety of my house to go explore that crash and that
I
noise.
don't get it.
Nope.
Nope. It makes no
Nope.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like. Is it something like that, or did they say? So I'm okay. I'm happy. Hi, Shimon. Smokehouse. Okay, smokehouse meat.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, there was just a lot of meat hanging in there, and it didn't look smoky to me. It looked cold, but
Yeah.
okay. We'll go with either one. I don't care what it was, but it was something with a lot of meat hanging in it. It doesn't seem very effective as a smokehouse if the door is open, but I guess someone just kind of got dragged in there, and I don't know. So then my next question, and this one's been bothering me
Okay.
with the show, is the two sword thing. I don't know if you noticed this.
I have.
Half the time he has one sword. I think I've seen two swords, like, I don't know, a hand, maybe a couple of times. And so I'm like, does he just decide what sword to carry with him when he goes somewhere? Like, what?
So I was reading in the book, and at the time, at the portion I was reading, so I'm still at the whole Striga portion. He only
Okay.
has one sword with him. It's the silver one, and Foltus makes a joke, and he's like, "Well, aren't you going to use that on me or something?" And I think it was in the show too. And he's like, "I'm not dueling my blade on you." And
Well,
but it was
he says silver is for
silver's for monsters,
steel's for
for
man.
humans, yeah. And but in the books, he was like, "I'm not dueling my blade on you." And
Right.
so he only had, like, it indicated he only had one sword at that moment. So I was like, I don't know if he just, like,
one.
I
I
think
don't
he
know.
maybe, I would have to assume, because you have
Does
to
chat
see,
know?
like,
Does anything in our chat know what's going on? Because I feel like I have consistently in the show only seen him carry
he's only
consistently
carrying
one sword.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I think maybe I'm not. I should have documented this better because I don't have a for sure answer. I don't know if I've ever seen him carry two or not. I can't remember.
I don't think I have. So my thought with that is that swords are one, heavy, and two, in the show, like in the games, you have your stamina or whatever. It regenerates quickly. It's more difficult to swap back and forth, blah blah blah. You never know when you're running into what. But in the show, he's like, even with, like, we'll just take the whole Striga thing. he carries that sword, like Hurt said, he carries a sword pack with him.
Yeah,
So it's like
exactly.
a bag.
Right.
And he's got that like bag of stuff. But he doesn't have it slung over his back. And I think it's probably just like a stamina thing, because in the books it even says that he gets like winded and he gets tired and he's got to prepare and think all this through. So he was like, okay, I've got 3 hours left, and how do I, how do I reserve my energy and how do I reserve my potions and stuff like that for this time period that I've got to deal with this stupid beast. So that, I think it's just practicality.
Hi, Perspective. Welcome in, love. Thanks for the follow. That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, it's probably something to do with that. They're being more realistic than a guy walking around with 2 swords on his back. Like, he knows the situations he's going into. Like, he knew when he was going into Blaviken. What's that town? Blaviken. Thank you. I was like,
you're welcome.
He knew he wasn't going in to fight monsters. He was going in to deal with people, so he brought his steel sword. I'm wondering if it's more like that kind of situational logic. And when he's on his horse, he probably has
his pack.
Yeah.
And even when he goes to the castle, he's got that pack of stuff.
Right.
And I have to imagine, like, he's got other weapons and trinkets and whatnots in there. Riggs, why is there no silver sword? There is a silver sword. When he's fighting the Striga, he swaps back and forth. So, like, in Blaviken, he's got a steel sword. When he's talking to Foltest, he's even talking to him about, it's silver for monsters and steel for humans.
And there's an instant where when he meets Jaskar, right at that moment when he sits down, he's like, let me guess. He's like, 2 swords, white hair, Witcher. Like, he makes that connection, so he has them there.
He's got them. He just isn't wearing them, I think. Yeah.
So
you want to see both on the back? I don't think both on the back is practical in real life. I think it's probably more game practical, like video game practical, than it is real life. And I feel like the show is trying to kind of be more practical and be more along the lines of the book. Why did you just go crazy on my screen? What is this?
Me? Is it blinking?
No, it just like... Okay, it fixed itself.
Okay, I was like, I have no connection issues on my end right now.
No, it just made you like distorted your size really weird.
Oh, well, I guess.
But it resolved. Yeah, but swords are like super duper heavy.
His sword is technically a silver sword or silver coated steel blade.
Oh, that's cool.
That is interesting. So
I could see that.
It's bonded through the forging of the sword. That is cool. Love the pillow. Thank you. Everyone who doesn't love this, it's a delicious thing. Okay, so I wrote, like I said, I wrote down a bunch of questions. So I'm just kind of going through them. Let's talk, as women, let's talk about Yen's talk on the beach with the dead baby.
Oh my gosh, that was so freaking heartbreaking.
And the burial that she does for the baby. Like, so, just to catch everyone up on that real quick, there's a scene where, and we talked about this last time, how the timelines. So the game has the show has 3 different timelines, and we come into Yen's timeline, and she's talking about how it's been 30 years, and she's just doing trivial court crap, politics, and she hates it. And this woman that she's with, I'm guessing she's the queen or whatever, is not producing a male heir. So the king has sent an assassin to kill the queen and the baby. So Yen is protecting this queen and the baby, and is portaling her away and away, and eventually she gives up on the queen because she's a brat. And the queen offers the baby and ends up dying, and then so Yen comes back to save the baby, and as Yen is running away with the baby, the assassin basically kills the baby. Yeah. Throws a knife and dagger, I don't know what it is, some sort of a thing, and it kills the baby. And so we have this scene where Yen is sitting on this beach talking to the dead baby, and it's really just like,
well, she tries to revive the baby, but what's crazy is she didn't want to hold the baby in the carriage. She wanted nothing to do with that baby in the carriage. It started crying, and the mom was like, just give me it back, and Yen's like, whatever. Yeah. And then Yen kind of snapped in that moment with the baby and tried to revive it with magic, not knowing that there was like a way, you can revive somebody without magic. She just didn't have that knowledge there. And but I thought it was really interesting because that was kind of what that was like almost another breaking point for her.
Yeah, it was a huge moment, very
Mm-hmm.
important moment for Yen.
Especially for the setup of the rest of the season.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because
Mm-hmm.
what is she focusing on the whole time is being able to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
She wants a kid.
Yep, the rest of the series, yep. Or
But let's
that
talk about
season.
like the specifics of what she was saying on the beach, because it started with the chick in the queen in the
Mm-hmm.
that she was supposed to be protecting. It started with her because she was like, we're just vessels
Yeah.
to them, we're nothing. And then I feel like that whole scene, despite her, I can, her animosity and disgust for this woman, um agrees
Mm-hmm.
at the end. She's sitting there saying that's all we are.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you have to say on that, I guess?
I feel like it was kind of what's the word I want to use? Kind of a nod to a lot of like what's going on in culturally, and us as women trying to kind of break that. And we've been trying to break it for 75 years now or so.
Yeah.
And thank you, perspective. Been trying to kind of break that. We're not just a homemaker. We're not just a baby maker. Like, we're not just these things. We have the ability to do and be more than that. We have our own minds. We have our own, wants and desires and abilities. And so I thought it was an interesting kind of nod to that, but a very quiet one.
And I think it was pivotal in Yen becoming who she is, because she was already this stubborn, strong, independent woman. But I feel like what they did with her in the carriage was showing that she hasn't been doing any of that. She hasn't really been living up to who she really is.
Not at all.
In over those 30 years. And I feel like this moment was like, and we see that in later episodes, which we won't get to right now, but we see that evolve of who she ends up becoming later. And how I feel like that scene on the beach is kind of that moment that pushes her into that direction.
Oh, it absolutely is. Absolutely. And I think for her, that was like the moment where she kind of realized that, we talked a lot about the manipulation aspect of Yen being constantly manipulated throughout everything she'd done. Manipulated by her family, manipulated by everybody at Tisea, at
the dude.
Aretusa, and the dude.
Yes.
I can't remember the dude's name.
I can never remember his name. I don't. The dude.
Yeah. Stregobor's peon.
Protege.
Yeah. But being manipulated by all these people and kind of told what she is and who she is and how she should be, and never getting to be what and who she wants. Like, even her choices are not, up until that point, aren't fully explained to her.
Right.
Or,
I mean, she didn't even get to choose that she technically was the one chosen out of all of the other mages that turned into little eels. I mean, she didn't choose that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, none of that. None of her life has been a choice.
It's all been a setup for her. So I thought it was really interesting that, and it's a setup for her with Geralt too. With him choosing the law of surprise. She doesn't know that was a choice that he made. She doesn't know that later down the line, Ciri's kind of going to become hers. And so all of this is kind of a setup for that. And I thought it was kind of beautifully done. But also it was so tragic.
It melts your heart, because it's never easy to sit and watch a little baby be dead.
No.
That's never an easy thing to see. And I think they did it very tastefully.
It was tastefully done.
It's not something you ever really want to witness on a TV show, because that can be so morbid. But I agree. I feel like it absolutely set them up because they need to have that thing that connects them down the line with Ciri. Something that brings them together like a little mini family.
Yeah.
And if she hadn't had that moment, that if the baby had survived, like unfortunately, if the baby had survived, maybe that wouldn't have been that turning moment for her.
It wouldn't have. She would have completely, I think, given up the whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people complain about Yennefer and they're like, she's so selfish and she's this and she's that. And I'm like, you have to realize she has never learned to be human. Like, she's never learned how to love. She's never learned any of these emotions because her parents didn't love her. Her dad gave her up for what? Four whatever that currency was.
Yeah.
And it clearly wasn't a lot. Yeah. And
I mean, less than the pig.
It was less than a pig, right? So it was like her dad didn't love her. That boy, you know, the boy and the girl that were kissing kind of shunned her and called her a freak. Tisea used her. The Stregobor's protege boy used her. Like the whole Aretusa situation was just a disaster. And then you could see that even in the place she was placed as a mage, she was just a political peon. And I mean, just a little pawn in a game. And so she never had any of those moments to
be herself,
to be
to grow into anything.
To grow. That's the word I'm looking for. To grow. She didn't have, like, everybody was like, you have to control your chaos and this, that, and the other. She didn't even know what chaos was. Like, she had no clue what it was. And
we're gonna get
so she
into
was
that in the last episode.
Very unlikable as a person. Like, very unlikable as a character.
And that's why I defend Yen. Because everyone's always like, Triss or Yen. And I'm like, the obvious choice to me has always just been Yen. She's way more interesting of a character to me than Triss was. And I think maybe that's because I don't have a lot of experience with Triss yet. And that could be what it is. I mean, I haven't finished the books yet. And I don't know her character super well. But from the game, I'm like, Yen is more interesting to me. Sure, she's got that
very short and to the point and blunt, and she's gonna tell you like it is.
Yeah, and
but I think it's because she like had no choice.
I think my dog's snoring.
I don't hear him.
I don't know. That was funny. I just hear. But yeah, I love that. Okay, so let's move. Okay, let's talk about the big thing in that episode. And so we talked about a huge changing point for Yen. I think a huge changing point for Geralt is the Law of Surprise event.
That's
a huge thing for him.
Yes.
So
that whole event was from wild. Start to finish was just wild.
I just finished it in the book, and you know what's funny? I actually like how they did it in the show better.
See, I haven't got there in the book.
I won't ruin it for you.
Okay.
In the book, but I like how they did it. I like how they portrayed it in the show better. I think they did a better job.
Something I want to talk about on the last episode, as we go through all of this, is time hopping. I want to get back to time hopping.
That's a good idea because these are the episodes where we start to finally understand.
You start understanding the time hopping, and if you read the books, you will understand fully why the time hopping is completely necessary.
Absolutely.
1000% necessary. Love it, hate it, I don't care. It's necessary, and we'll get into why later on. But the whole ball with the marriage proposals and the trying to win out favor and all of that.
Yeah.
There was just so much in that episode. My mind was like blown the second time I watched it.
I feel like we said last time, we could do a whole episode of this on episode 4.
Oh yeah.
Because episode 4 is so heavy.
Yeah. So like that's where you first you find out about that oh my god, it really is time hopping, and then B, you see Ciri's parents, but you don't know they're her parents yet, and it's just like it's so much.
It's so much. Let's just start with this. I don't think they explained the Law of Surprise very well at all in the show.
No.
Because I was so confused. I had to Google it and because I hadn't gotten to that in the book yet.
Yeah.
And so I was so lost. I was like, what are they talking about? And I, as someone that has played the Witcher games and I have, done all, we've talked about the Witcher and all that stuff. I was like, they did not explain this. So let me explain, or you can even explain it, Meg, if you understand. Let us explain to you what the Law of Surprise is.
So short story that they tell you in the show is the Law of Surprise is basically, I don't know what I want of yours right now, but I'm going to claim the Law of Surprise, which means that something you don't have right now that you're going to have later on that you don't know you're going to have is going to become mine. And that can be anything. Literally anything. It can be good or it can be bad.
And typically it's the first thing that they come home
to.
Yeah,
it's the first thing. And they don't explain it well at all in the book. So historically speaking, a lot of times the law of surprise was, and it does have like some historical aspect to it. But typically speaking, the law of surprise is basically, and it's used a lot of times for people who don't, interactions for people who don't have anything. So between two farmers, I'm going to claim law of surprise. And it could just be, okay, your next crop. It could be, oh, you have a bunch of puppies at home that you didn't know you had. It can be a pig that you just randomly come across. Like, it can be anything. And so historically it was used by people who didn't have anything as a way to pay their debt later.
And every once in a while, it results in an unexpected child.
Yes.
And so, let me explain why Dunny shows up and claims the law of surprise. Because it's very, very vague in the show.
Yeah, they don't explain the whole thing in the show.
What happens, Dunny shows up because he saved the queen's husband. And as repayment, he said, "What's the line? What's the? I'll take what you. I claim. What's the line, guys?
What you have that you don't yet know. I don't remember.
Something like that.
Let me see.
And so what he didn't know he didn't have or whatever was Pavetta, which is Ciri's mom. So he came home. He was alive. He has a daughter. So Dunny was not, when he found out, what he says in the show and in the book, what he says is, I wasn't going to claim my law of surprise, but destiny, and that is such, oh my gosh, we gotta talk about that too. Destiny plays such a huge role in this show, in this book, everything. Destiny brought them together. Now, I'm not 100% sure I fully understand the curse that Dunny was under. Even after reading the book, I'm still a little confused about it.
Pavetta is cute.
But so we have Dunny claiming Pavetta because he technically, by destiny, she's bound to him. And then Geralt is leaving, and Dunny's like, "Hey, I owe you something because you saved my life. You made us because he defends Dunny, and Dunny and Pavetta get to be together." And he's like, "I owe you something." Geralt's like, I don't want anything. And then he's like, "Fine, I also claim the lost prize." And as he's leaving, Pavetta throws up, and you find out Pavetta is also pregnant. So now Ciri, by destiny, is bound to Geralt. Does that make sense, chat? Because it's not clear in the show. It makes a lot more sense in the book. It makes even more sense when you Google it.
So another thing that I thought was really interesting is the whole thing of destiny. Because destiny goes back to episode 1. All the way, so episode 4 connects to episode 1, but episode 4 happens before episode 1 happens.
Yes.
If you're looking at it chronologically speaking. So in episode 4, the lioness, which is the queen, is talking about how the whole thing is, she's talking about how she doesn't believe in destiny, and she's like basically giving a big middle finger up to destiny. And
something that men believe in.
Yes, something men believe in, and this, that, and the other. And so she starts going back and forth with this. And she goes to betray everybody by causing a scene and fighting. And then Pavetta causes another scene with her powers that nobody really knew she had. And that starts another line of okay, is destiny real or not? And then, so the lioness is like, okay, fine, I believe in destiny. And then she goes to stab Dunny in the side, and something else happens. And so Geralt was like, do you believe in destiny now? And everybody got really smart about it. And so then if you go back to episode 1, she talks about destiny in that episode. She tells Ciri, this is your destiny. Geralt is your destiny. Go find your destiny. And she's also talking about kind of the Novigrad stuff and the issues with all of that. And that also being a part of destiny. And you don't catch it in the first episode why it's important unless you rewatch it.
And there's something to do with you know what? I'm not going to get into that. There's a reason Novigrad is coming to attack.
Yes, there is.
That you actually don't even find out in this season.
No, I think we'll find out later, but that goes back to time hopping and why it was so important to time hop now.
Yeah. There's a huge reason, and she's the one paying for it dearly, and she knows it. It's because of what she did.
Well, they kind of touch on it very, very minusculely. I mean, they touch on it with Geralt in the cave when they're chained up. I won't go into it more because it will spoil it, because I think they're going to touch on it later. And they touch on it when Ciri's with what's his name, the little elf boy.
Oh no, Dara.
Yeah, Dara. So they touch on it there, and if you didn't catch it, I think you'll be in for a surprise next season, because I think they're gonna kind of do a rewind for some of that, because I think it plays into. I think it's gonna become really important for what happened then, for what's to come for next season. It has to. You have to go back, because the Novigrad Wars, even if you're in the game, the Novigrad Wars, those play such a big role in everything. All of the stuff with Novigrad is so important, and if you don't understand it, then you're kind of left in the dark.
Nilfgaard, not Novigrad.
Nilfgaard,
right.
yes.
Laser,
yes.
Thank you.
We're saying Nilfgaard. Yes, we're saying Novigrad.
Nilfgaard.
It's Nilfgaard. Thank you.
Listen, you know what? There's
so many ends. Yeah, Nilfgaard.
So many. Thank you.
Yes.
Nilfgaardians.
Yes, that.
We're getting more specific. Yes, but there's a whole thing with Nilfgaard, not Novigrad. Thank you.
No, it's not covered in the games, and it's not covered fully in the show. You can pick up on it in the show, but
you can pick up on you know it in the game.
Not fully. You pick up on it over time, but you don't understand it.
I didn't understand it. I honestly didn't. I had to ask chat we won't get into it. I had to ask chat because I was very confused.
Yeah,
about it.
You get hints of it, but you don't understand why. And they kind of touched on the why in the show a little tiny bit, but if you don't know
what you're looking for,
then you have to go to the books. But they're going to touch. They have to touch on it next season. They absolutely have to.
It's a huge arc. For the story.
And then all of the what is it? The non-humans. What do they call them? Half-breeds. What's the word? Well, I mean, you've got the elves, you've got the dwarves, you've got the shapeshifters, you've got the doppelgangers, you've got all these things that are non-human, and all of that drama has to be covered too, because that also plays into the Nilfgaard stuff, and it also plays into the Lioness stuff. So
yep, it does. I mean, we'll just look at for example, the episode. I want to. Don't let me forget the Dunny curse. I really do want to go over that.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm not sure. I think I get it, but you know how when you talk things out, things sort of click together better. So the scene where Ciri's in the tent with that family, and there's the dwarf, and how terrible they treat the dwarf. That was a good, despite it being horrible and being sad to watch. It was very important because it showed you a lot of the
animosity and racism,
that the races have towards each other, especially with the elves and Geralt at the end of episode 2. Episode 2. Yeah. So all of that is really important because it really shows you how all of these races are really just barely putting up with each other. I mean, the elves and them are not at all.
Well, the elves are so the elves. So much happened to them. And they talk about that in the episode in the tent, because the boy's wearing a necklace made of elf ears.
Yep.
And if you don't pick up on these little tiny hints with what happened to the elves, then you missed a lot.
I mean, they give you a pretty good idea of what happened when Geralt is captured by I always forget his name. The king elf dude.
I don't remember.
I forgot his name.
Anyway, I don't remember. But you get another hint of it when she's talking to the little elf boy, because he was like, your grandmother slaughtered all of my people. I watched them swing our babies around by their ankles.
Yeah.
Like, he literally says they used to just swing them around and then just beat them on the ground, essentially. Like, it was terrible. But then you see the racism with the dwarf, he was basically a slave in that human tent. And so they're giving you these little bitty hints of what's going on in this world across tons of time periods. And you don't realize that this hatred stretches so long.
So long. It is not good.
Yeah.
I mean, you get into the game and they're in the beginning they're like killing all the sorcerers and wages and all that stuff, and then that flips and all of a sudden they start killing dwarves and other people like in the game. I mean, this is just the time period of the game and it flips. The animosity changes like a freaking light switch.
But you see, even in the books and in the games, and in the show, Geralt is different from everybody else because he says, I will not kill somebody with, what is the word he always uses? With,
I know what you're talking about. Oh my gosh.
There's a specific word.
Because he's like, he says
it's not intelligent. It's, I won't kill
someone says
a sentient creature. I won't kill sentient creatures.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, back. Thank you. I will not kill sentient. Yes. That's it. And okay, so that brings us back to Dunny. Let's talk about Dunny's curse. He says that
until the bell strikes midnight.
Until the bell strikes midnight. Now, okay, I think the reason why I don't want to spoil it because you're not there in the book yet. So I think
you can go ahead. I don't mind. I'll figure it out anyway.
He said in the movie or the book or whatever that it happened when he was a kid. And it in the book, okay, so here's why I'm putting it together slowly, I think. In the book, it explains it much better. In the book, it says that he's only like this from, I think it's like sun up to sundown.
Yeah, it's basically sun up to sundown.
No, sun up to sundown, or it's like midnight to something. It's like there's a time period where he looks like this, and there's a time period where he looks like a normal person. Now, I can't remember what happens in the show because that's the book. The book, they say it's a certain time period, and then otherwise he's a normal man, which makes sense, which is why Pavetta falls in love with him because he doesn't always look like Porcupine Head.
Right, because he said he used to at first wait until after the bell chimed to go see her.
Exactly.
And that he wasn't going to let anything, like he wasn't even going to do anything then. Yeah. And then they, by chance or by destiny, quote unquote,
fell in love,
met up and then fell in love. And then she fell in love with who he was and not just that he was, and like didn't care that he was cursed.
Exactly. So in the show, all they say, well, one, in the book, they don't take his helmet off. They respect the helmet. So shame on Ice for that.
Yeah.
In the show, they rip his helmet off, and so we see. I mean, I guess it actually kind of makes sense because it helps us see what the big deal is. But they don't say that. They just say till the stroke of midnight. You don't. And so I was confused because I was like, is it saying, oh, the curse will be lifted at midnight, or is it saying? I was like, it didn't make sense. Honestly, I don't feel like they explained that very well in the show.
Yeah.
As to what was going on, because I was like, is this like how?
See, I thought of it like as kind of like Cinderella, but an extended Cinderella. Where like the bell strikes midnight, she turns back into Cinderella, like all of her pretties go away. Versus him, his curse melts away, and then when the sun rises, it comes back.
It comes back.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so what is that? So the destiny, it breaks it? So we don't really hear how he got cursed or why he got cursed.
So what broke the curse was almost like, you know how Belle falls in love with the beast and that breaks his curse. The lioness's blessing on the marriage is what in the show breaks his curse.
Right.
So
okay. Why was he?
I think being accepted by people, I don't know.
Have you noticed how much in the book so far? You're only the Striga.
I'm only at Striga. In the book,
there's so many fairy tales.
I haven't noticed.
I caught like 10 different fairy tales being portrayed in the book.
Makes sense.
Rapunzel. There's like every single one. There's Snow White. All of them. There's so many.
We have to think like all the Hans Christian Andersen stuff comes from all like Europe,
Yeah.
and
It's
Witcher
like
was takes place
it's why
in like
yeah, I feel like it's so
Poland.
creative.
So
He takes these
you
fairy
pull
tales and
from
twists them.
you pull from all that lore.
Yeah. Which is interesting because wait, hold on. The early episodes were
That
making it
stuff.
clear early on that Geralt isn't even a normal Witcher personality-wise. He's a very unique perspective, which is interesting because he extends this to monsters. The expectations largely stem from his loose moral code that he doesn't kill sentient creatures unless it's a creature that kills other sentient creatures. Which probably, I wonder, has to do with the additional mutations that I wonder, or if it's just who he is.
Or
Because
it too could be because of how he was raised by Vesemir.
I love Vesemir.
So like you have to think like I think Vesemir got soft with Geralt. Like I haven't gotten far enough in to kind of really know, but I think Vesemir got a little soft with Geralt because Geralt and correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't many Witchers after Geralt in that group.
I don't think so.
Because
well, wait. I always thought Geralt was older.
I think he is, but I think there was like a couple of groups that went through, and then his was one of the last ones. But I could be wrong. I could be entirely wrong, so do not quote me on that. 1,000%. I'll have to look up the lore. Because I feel like they even talk about that somewhere in the show.
Geralt is the last of his school, at least.
Okay.
So is who are the other two Witchers? I always forget names.
I can't remember.
In the game.
I can see their face in the games, and I can't remember them.
I know their faces. There's the two Witchers that are always there. And
the grumpy one.
Yeah, the grumpy one, and the ones that he like gets drunk with. That's so funny. That's a funny question.
But they do mention it in the show. They do, because he says something about it.
I feel like.
Vesemir,
maybe it's because of the white hair.
I think it's the white hair.
It might just be the white hair.
There was something in the show that they mentioned, because somebody asks him about being a Witcher, and I don't know where in the show it was. But somebody asks him how many of them are there left, and he said not many. I'm one of the, there was no more made.
He's one of the few remaining.
Yeah, but he said there was no more made. Somebody asks, and he was like, "There's no more being made."
Yeah. Well, yeah, because by the way, sorry, my brain just.
Mine does too. It's okay.
The movie that's being made, right? Have you heard about that yet?
The
animated.
The animated
Netflix
one. Yeah.
is coming out with, and it's the same people that made like Avatar and Korra. I'm actually really excited. So I watched a video on what people might think it might be about, and someone says that they think it could be about the sacking of Kaer Morhen.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Because we never hear anything about that. All we know is that it happened, and now there's no more Witchers that can be made. How cool would that be? I'm so excited. The white hair is specifically for him, the extra drugs. Yes.
Yeah.
The extra mutations.
He underwent extra, yeah.
Yeah. They don't make any more Witchers because aside from Vesemir, who refuses to make more, no one else knows. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's because those that did know were killed during the sacking of Kaer Morhen, so they can't make any more.
Yep.
I had... So my last question... And this could be something in the books, so therefore I just don't understand it yet. The tree at the end that Ciri sees in the dream. Like, what is that? Does anybody know? Is it, without spoiling either the future of the show from the books or anything, is there something that I missed? I don't understand the giant tree.
Dream.
So she drinks
from the
water.
Yeah.
And all we know, it ends with just her and the tree, and that's all we know. We don't. It just says, "What are you, child?" or something like that.
I'm trying to remember.
No more school of wolf witchers. Other schools still make them. Wait, Shimon, explain that a little more.
I thought most of the other schools were done as well.
Is Kaer Morhen only for the wolf? Or do you choose? I don't actually know how that works. Or do you choose? I thought you chose what you were there. There's more schools. Like, is there more places like Kaer Morhen? Like, we don't know about? Like,
there's more places. There's Kaer Morhen, there's Caer Trolde, there's So, like, Caer Trolde is in Skellige.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are they?
I don't remember. There's
the
like the
wolf
viper.
headquarters. I know there's a lot of different animals.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it was kind of like Hogwarts, where you got sorted into your Witcher creature.
Albus says it's a sorting hat. No, I don't know. I think it's probably based on where you are, where you go.
Interesting. I didn't. Oh, today I learned. See, I love this. I love it. Caramon was Wolffoot. Geralt Batch lived there. Okay. Okay. So then, more. They don't even talk about that. There's another. How did I miss that in the? Did they even talk about that in the game?
Mm-hmm.
How did I miss that?
You visit the places.
Did I visit it?
Yes, there's whole quests at these other schools. You just don't know that they're schools. They don't talk about it in the game. You have to pick it up from context.
Oh my god.
But in the game, they're all dead. Like, they're all done. Dunzo.
Interesting.
So, like, Caer has been taken over by somebody else completely, I think. Don't quote me on that one either.
End of the events of Witcher 3, only 2 schools still recruit Witchers.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 2. Okay, they're still taking recruits and are active in the traditional sense are the Bear and Griffin School. Where are those at?
No idea.
Where are the Bear?
But you have to remember, too, in the game, it's completely different than the book.
That's true.
So we have to figure that out in the book. I feel like I've got so much to read.
I know.
I'm so behind.
Read this book.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of lore in this. That's probably going to explain a lot. And
that one's all game lore, so
I know. That's true.
Use caution.
But still, it'll teach us a lot.
Yeah.
And we can always compare. What'll be fun is we can
compare and contrast. Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
I think, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think, oh gosh, I'm not going to get into that.
Is that for next?
No, I was going to compare Geralt to some of his comrades from Kaer Morhen.
Oh.
And I was like, no, if you don't know the games well enough to know the characters, then you're not going to get what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we don't need to worry about that.
But his personality is very different.
Yes. He is very different. He's a very different Witcher from anybody I've encountered in the books and in the game, and as you can see in the TV show. Like, I mean, you can tell just from the way Geralt talks even about his other Witchers, where he's like, I don't accept payment until the job is done. And they're like, well, what happens if the job isn't done? He's like, I die. And I'm like, oh, damn. Like, you know, that just shows you Geralt's character.
Yeah.
So much, just in that one little line.
What episode is it when you see him as a child for that split second and you see Vesemir?
I want to say that's like 7.
It's coming up. I know. We're not there yet.
Near the end. It's real. I think that's 7 I'm pretty sure it's 7 or 8 because yeah, I want to say it's 7 or 8.
Because I want to rewatch that because I was interested to see if we kind of got glimpses of him as a child and his personality then, to see if it was like more of that or
how much they hold on to as they go through the process of the like the trial of the grasses and stuff. Yeah, that would be really interesting. Oh, I love it. Oh man, is there anything else we can think of? Is there any questions the chat has that you guys would like to go over for episodes 3 and 4 that we've missed, or
do we want to talk about the powers in episode 4 that Pavetta has? Her powers. Oh, we didn't talk about her powers.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It goes back to episode 1 when you see Ciri's power. Or is it episode... It was episode 1 when she flashes it.
1.
Yeah. So... And they don't explain what the power is.
Nope.
At all.
They really don't. They still don't.
It is not explained. She's powerful. And they don't say what she is as part of the other thing. They just say nobody know, like, they don't know what she is yet. They don't know what she is. They don't know what she is.
And to be honest, part of me still doesn't know. I mean, like, I know from the game that she's got, like, that royal blood line, or she's, like, the elf, and all
she's
that stuff.
Bunch of, I don't even know.
I really, honestly, I know what her powers are because of the game. But then again, I don't know if those are actually the
real powers. But yeah, I thought it was the elder blood. Yes, thank you, Albus. The elder blood.
Yes,
yeah.
I'm like the royal blood.
That blood. The blood. Yeah.
The blood.
But I thought it was really interesting how uh, Pavetta doesn't have her power honed
No.
at all. She
Mm-mm.
almost killed everybody
Yeah.
in both flashes of like, so one was a flash of rage and the other was a flash of joy, and they're both related to emotion. And
Yep.
she almost killed everybody with her joy and being like married when they're like floating up or whatever. She just like straight up snapped, like Rock said. And I thought it was interesting that even Geralt was struggling to get himself pulled away and through that to basically zap her out of it and be like,
Yeah.
you got to come down.
Like, enough.
Yeah.
In the book, like I was saying, I like the book. I don't like the book's rendition of the scene. I really like how they did it in the show. And I think because it shows everything a lot better. In the book, it's gosh, I don't even know how to explain this. You'll have to read it. I don't feel like it was still good, but I think they did a better job displaying the power of what's going on, displaying what's going on between her and Denny. I felt like there was a stronger connection watching it in the show versus what I was seeing in the book.
I wonder if some of that's translation too, because you're an English major. Okay, so as an English major, and as somebody who speaks English, there are specific words in the book that you can just pick out immediately that the translation is not correct. And my only thought is that there's no English translation for that word that's equivalent or good enough. And so I was kind of wondering in some of these scenes if
Yeah.
maybe the translation just doesn't give you justice.
Yeah, I mean, it could be true because they're working with the author to make the show, and they're working with people who probably obviously speak
Yeah.
Polish.
Polish, yes.
Like, what? Polish. I'm like, what language is it again? My brain went blank. But yeah, so yeah, I felt like the show did a better job.
Yeah, so I was wondering if some of that was because of translation.
I just didn't love it as much. I was like, it feels a little, they like, there's, instead of knocking her down and then all of this kind of takes place in the same room, like amongst the rubble, they like go off into a separate room. And then it just feels a little anticlimactic with Geralt and the law of surprise and all that kind of happening because, what's the name? Clenth is like trying to give Geralt a reward, and I'm like, why? Like, just I don't know. I felt like I didn't like any of that. I was like, I liked how Dunny was like, I need to, and in the book, Dunny does. He is like, I need to be the one that like awards him, but like, she gives him her necklace. Maybe that comes down to, maybe that becomes important later. The necklace thing, I don't know, it might become important later. But for me, I was like, I didn't like that in the book. She's like, I need to pay you, Geralt, for making, like, helping me see reason and blah blah blah. And then he's like, I'll just take that jewel around your neck or whatever. And so she gives him her necklace, and then he's like, no, I also need to pay you, Geralt.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll take the law of surprise. And then it's just kind of like, okay. And I don't know, it didn't feel.
Because he had intended to just leave. He was like, bye, I'm done.
Well, he was trying.
He told Jasker, he's like, do not get in trouble. Don't swim your trout in any suspicious ponds until the stroke of midnight.
And that's the other thing. It has nothing to do with Jaskar.
Yeah.
At all in the book.
It was funny in the show with him in there, though.
I liked it. Like I said, I liked how the show did it better. I think the show did it better. I think bringing Jaskar into it lightened the mood a little and added that needed comedy to it.
It did.
Because otherwise the scene is a little bland without it. I feel like because Geralt is actually invited to this gathering. The queen wanted him there basically to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And you see that a little bit with the queen sitting next to Geralt. And she's like, what if I make you, or what if I torture you, or blah, like they're having that little back and forth that they have together. They have a lot more of that in the book because she invited him. So yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot. I know. I like I said, I like how the show did it a lot better. The whole scene was better done. Better done. More well done. The scene, she felt like it was dragged out a little.
I feel that too. It was dragged out in the show.
Yeah, it was. I'm trying to think how long it lasts in the book.
In the show, it was almost the entire episode, and it dragged a little much.
Yeah. Well, I think they're talking about the floating, and she's up in the
Yeah,
air.
that dragged a little much, but even that whole expanse could have been shortened.
I could see it, yeah. I think in the book it lasts quite a while too, actually. I feel like it feels, but then again, it's reading it makes it seem like it lasts a little longer. Scene is hilarious because it literally felt like Garrett was like, screw Destiny and Destiny. But that's why I liked the rendition of the show more than the book. Or the book, or the TV's rendition of the book a little more. Because it really gave it that. So the thing was, I honestly like this. The Lost Surprise scene is hilarious because it literally felt like Garrett was like, screw Destiny. Destiny's like, clap back. I like that because you don't really get that in the book.
Well, you get that clap back like multiple times through that entire freaking scene. Like that whole episode, the whole Destiny thing, just like, it's basically like farting in everybody's faces with a fan blowing it all back at them. Like,
yeah, I like that. I thought it was great. And it tied back to episode 1 really well.
I'm sorry, that was a terrible analogy, but it was also accurate.
I think it worked.
I think it worked.
Do we have anything else we want to talk about? That was all my questions I wrote down while watching it.
Yeah, I think that was it. I'm ready for the next episodes.
Yeah, I'm excited. Get into 4. Guys, all right, so I guess we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
So next Sunday, guys, we'll be doing episodes 5 and 6.
5 and 6.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, darling.
Rewatch your episodes. Come prepared with questions. Yeah.
You guys are what make this a lot of fun. I love that you guys have been participating.
Ta-da! Welcome in, Jose.
Meg's beautiful
Joseph.
stream.
Joseph, welcome.
I'm not done. I'm not done streaming yet. You stay right there, Misha. We're not done yet. We've got games to play.
Otter's not done streaming.
Oh.